Hey guys, I'm artsy.bryce, and today I'm going to be doing a sketch tutorial on how you can get an accurate sketch using the grid method, the dot method, and the freehand method. So if you want to see how to do that, then make sure to keep on watching.
The pencils I'll be using today is the 2H pencil from Loft. I just found whatever 2H pencil I could find, just something light enough to sketch. For paper, I have the Strathmore drawing paper and the Strathmore toned gray paper. I think the drawings really show up nicely on the gray paper. To start, for the grid, I'm just going to be marking out little hash marks, each an inch away from each other. That way I can just get an easy to follow grid. You want to make sure that each of these hash marks are equally spaced apart so that your grid is not bigger or smaller in any of the squares. Just finishing up the vertical lines. Now for horizontal. You also want to make sure you don't move your ruler. If your ruler moves, then that means that your lines are going to be either curvy or crooked, and you just don't want that. You also can use an app for this. I tend to use the app Grid hashtag or Grid number on the App Store. That way I don't have to always print out references and waste my ink. So now I'm just going to draw a box on my paper to mimic the size of the drawing that I want to do, which is going to be equivalent to the reference size. You also want these lines to be straight, and make sure you're pressing really lightly on your paper. You don't want these lines to show through on your final drawing. I've had that happen to me a few times, and it's not fun, and it ruins the look of your drawing. Now for the hash marks. Also want these to be the same as your reference. Just makes it all easier to follow. In my opinion, I honestly think that I pressed too hard with this grid. You want it to be even lighter than mine. You want it to be just light enough that you can see it, but heavy enough to the point where you can see it, but light enough to the point where you can erase it. Now I'm just going to start sketching her arm. Really and truly, it does not matter where you start. I just found that this is one of the easiest spots to start on this drawing. I have no idea why. The grid method is pretty self-explanatory. You just draw what each square is from your reference and onto your paper. So like, for example, on the right column, all those squares, let's say it is the 5th one or 6th one down, you're gonna imitate that on your paper. You can always go back and erase too if you didn't do something correct, and it helps you make correct proportions, which I find are very hard to do in some cases. You also want to make sure that your pencil is sharp. If your pencil is dull, then it'll automatically create darker lines. And like I said before, you don't want that. Later in the video, I also have some issues with the pencil that I was using. I think that the 2H is a nice light pencil, but the lead is just too hard for me to use, so it was making like a scratching noise on my paper. So I just ended up switching to a mechanical pencil instead. Now I'm sketching out the outline of her face. I honestly could have done better with this outline or sketch. I just thought that I actually think that she is very, very hard to draw. I tried sketching her one time before, but failed miserably, so it might just be her or me. I have no clue. Now doing her facial features. I have seen artists start with the facial features, which is okay, but I prefer to at least get the outline of the face done, so that way I can kind of base it where I want to. I also don't like the way I did her hand. You just want to make sure that you're trying to get your drawing to be as accurate as possible compared to the reference. This is the Tombow Mono eraser that I use to erase small lines on my drawing. It just helps with picking up the graphite to create small highlights or erase small mistakes. You also want to make sure that your sketch is as accurate as possible. The more accurate your sketch is and the more detailed it is, the easier it will be to do your drawing or to shade it in / color. Also for her curly hair, I'm just kind of outlining it, not really paying too much attention to the flyaways. I will just do that when I start the drawing. Here is the final sketch. I don't know if you can see, but I can see still some grid lines in there, and you want to make sure you don't have that. For my next sketching technique, we are doing the dot method. And the dot method is basically marking dots on your reference at important spots. You're then going to put these dots on your paper and kind of see where you need to connect them and what lines or shapes you need to make to get the sketch. Personally, I don't use this method and don't necessarily like it, but I thought I should just add it in the video anyway in case anybody wanted to use it. You need to make sure to pay really close attention to where you are marking the dots, because if the dots are in the wrong places, then it can mess up your entire drawing. Once again, I personally felt like I could do better, but I was just doing a demonstration. You also want to make sure that these dots are not too hard when you're doing it, because it will show through on your drawing. Now I'm going to start sketching her body. So here is her arm. Just trying to get the shape or the outline of her arm just to try and get that accurate sketch. Now I'm doing her sleeve. I didn't really outline the sleeve too much or do the creases, just because I felt like it wasn't really necessary at the moment. It's one of those things that I could go back and add while I'm shading. Here I'm just doing the other side of her shirt, making sure following the shape. If anything doesn't look right, I will go back and fix it. It's really important that you have that mindset that you can fix things. Don't just think that the first time you did it, it'll be good, or that you can stay with that, or you don't want to have any eraser lines. press lightly all the time so that you can erase it and go back and fix it. I can't tell you how many times I have to erase. It just happens. See here, I'm struggling with her armpit crease quite a bit. I didn't know how to make it look or how to sketch it out without it looking dumb until I finally settled on this. Now I'm going to start with her neck and her face. I found this to be really difficult and tried many different features and shapes and lines to try and get it correct, and I still don't like how it looks, but I just had to move on. I will go back and fix it if I ever do this drawing, but for right now, this will have to do. I also made the mistake of not putting any dots on her face, so this whole portion right here was basically me trying to figure out where everything goes just by looking at it. So basically the freehand method, which you'll see in a little bit. Her jawline was also very difficult to do. I felt like it should have been curved but more straight. But no matter which way I did it, it always looked weird to me. Now I'm just adding in a little bit of hair detail. Just trying to mark in the flowingness, if that's even a word, of her hair. Making sure that it looks proportionate to her head. I don't know if you can also see the light pencil that I have on her face. I did do her face, but it looked so awful that I was so ashamed and just had to erase it. Like, I couldn't even look at it. Obviously, I'd have to go back and fix that if I ever do the drawing, but for right now, it was just too hideous to look at. Here you can see I switched to the mechanical pencil. Just was a lot easier to use than the 2H. I would say I recommend using a H or HB pencil. Those are light and they don't have as hard of a lead as 2H. Here I'm going back and messing with the jawline once more, just trying to get it as accurate as possible. Here is the final sketch. It's alright, not my favorite, not the best, but it'll do for now. Now onto the last method. This is the freehand method. I see a lot of artists do this and some are really, really good at this. Me personally, I struggle so much with this method just because everything you're doing is your hand-eye coordination. So for this drawing and this sketch tutorial, I decided to do a hand. I'm not particularly good at drawing hands, but I thought it would be a good demonstration. As you can see, I am pressing a little hard, so when I do erase, you can see it. Make sure that you are not doing that. You want to make sure you're paying attention to the small things. Don't look at the entire drawing and say, oh my gosh, I'm drawing a hand. Make sure to just look closer and look at the shapes, angles, the lines, which way they curve, and then it'll be a lot easier to draw it. And over time, the image will build. I also recommend do not start with this method. It's a whole lot easier to start with the grid method or even tracing it. Tracing it, I know is frowned upon, but really and truly, if you're a beginner artist, trace and it'll help you build that mentality or that practice of getting an accurate sketch. I, for one, say I started tracing. I only traced for maybe 5 drawings before I found the grid method and just started using that. And don't feel rushed to start using whatever method you need to. If you still want to use the tracing method after a year, go ahead and do that if that's what you're comfortable with. You never have to go to this method if you don't want to. This method is very difficult, and if you're not good at it, then don't worry about it. And here is the final hand piece.
So guys, that's it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed, and if you didn't, please let me know down in the comments below. I really want to take your feedback and criticism so that I can improve whatever I can improve for my video quality, my enthusiasm, my editing, all of that I want to improve. So just please let me know. Make sure to subscribe, like, comment, and turn on the bell, tick that bell icon so you can get notified every single time I upload a brand new video. My next video is going to be like a little planning type deal for what I have in mind for this YouTube channel so that we can be on the same page. Anyways, I hope you guys had an awesome day, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!